I'm not an RPG guy. Yeah, RPGs have never really been my favorite type of video game genre. I definitely respect the genre. It has incredible storytelling and great characters and great scenery and, more often than not, incredible soundtracks. But it's just not my go-to genre of games. I just don't have the mental capacity to play a game that lasts well over 75 hours of pure game, and well, RPGs are just that. Unless it's a really, really good game, so much so that I spent the last month trying to beat it, I'm probably not gonna make it past the 5-hour mark of an RPG. I'm more into games like platformers and open-world adventure games. Those are genres in which you're always doing some sort of thing, whether it's running and jumping or exploring a vast world. Yeah, RPGs have some of this and some of that, but they're just not the type of games that really captivate me in an immersive way. Again, for the most part. Most of the game is just reading dialogue and wandering from point A to point B, and that's not the type of game I'm willing to put dozens of hours into. In order for me to actively play an RPG, it has to have something special, something unique, something that's more than just a basic textbook definition of an RPG. And well, this RPG does that and even more. A unique way of storytelling with lovable characters, an art style so beautiful with scenery you've never seen before, and combat that's actually fun. Who would have guessed it? The game, part of an RPG, is surprisingly fun. Let me tell you, this is not your average RPG. This is Octopath Traveler. Let's start off with the main thing of an RPG, the story. So the main gimmick per se of the game is the fact that there are 8 different stories all tied into a single world, hence the name Octopath Traveler. Each story revolves one of the main 8 characters going on a journey in order to do whatever their storyline has to offer. As you explore the world, you'll encounter the rest of the characters and see how their story plays out. It's honestly incredibly refreshing to see a unique way of storytelling in a genre that sometimes lacks that sort of uniqueness. What's even more amazing is what these stories consist of. Most RPGs involve a hero trying to stop some sort of demon that's gonna use the power of black holes to end the universe and this and this and that, and it's complicated stuff. But these stories feel so much more lifelike in a very simple yet complicated manner. For instance, Tress's story is going through the world map trying to become a better merchant, and Cyrus's is literally just spending 4 chapters trying to look for a book. They seem extremely simple, and they are, but are magnified greatly when it comes to the characters and set pieces that you find along the way. Oh, and the characters. Yeah, they're amazing. This game's characters have a lot of depth, considering the simple nature of the game. The characters in this game fit so well with their stories, and their personalities are able to shine so much in so many unique ways. While the concept of an entire storyline revolving around a book of all things might seem anticlimactic, it's made so much more interesting when you take into consideration that Cyrus is a curious and scholar that finds even the smallest of things noteworthy. That curious personality leads to a story with so much more than just looking for a book, and it's incredible how this game does it. What's even more amazing is the fact that this holds true for 8 different characters, each with their own contrasting personalities. This game manages to create such a lively world with its simple stories and in-depth characters. And beautiful characters with an all-around beautiful story? Let's just say that those are factors that aren't just what make a one-of-a-kind RPG, but a one-of-a-kind video game as well. Now, of course, there's no point in making a great plot and great characters if the game ends up looking like complete garbage. Funnily enough, I feel like if there's one thing that RPGs always do right, it has to be the presentation. Even the worst of RPGs always end up surprising me with beautiful visuals and soundtracks that just never miss. Nearly every RPG has their own art style and little things that make them unique. And well, Octopath Traveler definitely continues that trend. This game looks stunning. It combines an old-school 8-bit art style with a more modern spin to it, making the land of Austria look magnificent. When I say it uses a more modern spin with 8-bit graphics, I mean that it uses a lot more modern visual techniques in order to make everything pop out. Stuff like sun rays and shadows all have a very nice feel to them, which is surprising with the 8-bit art style. The use of the Unreal Engine is, well, pretty unreal, and it does its best at giving everything such a natural feel to it, making the game look outstanding. From the character sprites to the scenery around them, everything has top-notch beauty. And the beauty of the presentation doesn't just end there, as this game's soundtrack, this game's soundtrack, it's a little something I like to call really fucking good. The soundtrack has a more orchestral type of tone to it, which on the surface doesn't seem like it could fit a game with 8-bit graphics, however manages to integrate itself into the game in such a delightful way. Each piece of melody has exquisite instrumentation, with instruments like the violin being used in a more calming fashion for set pieces like towns, while also being used in battle themes, but combined with a lot of bass to provide an emphasis on a battle for the ages type feeling. I couldn't credit this as much as I'd want to if I didn't fully play it here, so here, have a listen. When it comes to the art section of the game, it outdoes itself in so many different ways, with a unique visual asset and a soundtrack that's just phenomenal. It's definitely up there when it comes to being one of the most beautiful games to ever be made. If there's one thing that turns people away from fully enjoying an RPG, it's probably the gameplay. Most RPGs have pretty lackluster gameplay, so much so that it sometimes ruins the experience for someone, and justifiably so. You are playing a game, after all. Even if it's very story-driven, the gameplay should still be enjoyable at the times in which you are playing. Thankfully, Octopath's gameplay is not only one that's just tolerable, but one that's actually fun. It goes off the random encounter turn-based system, which, yeah, isn't everyone's cup of tea, myself included, but the turn-based combat more than makes up for it. It's surprisingly fast-paced, which is not something you'd always see in a turn-based RPG. The game even gives you a skill option that lowers random encounter rates, and I find myself not using it that much because I actually want to be playing the game. It's that fun. A variety of skills with a cool boost system that adds strategic elements to it. Different character sets, each with their own kit of tools that provide more than just fire attack and lightning attack. It's all here. This, alongside a great story, is rarely ever seen in a lot of modern games. Oftentimes the story is an Oscar-winning masterpiece with gameplay incredibly underwhelming, and vice versa. This game manages to find a good balance between a fulfilling story and fun gameplay, and that's something to admire for sure. And this is an RPG we're talking about. This is a game in a genre notorious for being one-sided, more often than not on the story side of things. But Octopath Traveler is capable of not only making a fun and fulfilling story, but a fun and fulfilling story alongside great gameplay. Remember, this is an RPG, so it's definitely something to write home about. Octopath Traveler is beautiful, and that's all I'm gonna say, apart from the 3-page script that I wrote. It's able to go against the dark RPG tradition and instead make a game that's not only compelling story-wise, but in its combat and gameplay. It has lovable characters that, let's be real, you'll probably get just a bit too attached to them by the end of the game, alongside a beautiful story that tags all the characters along. Fulfilling combat that puts the player on their feet with amazing music to back it up. I cannot stress this enough, the soundtrack is far too good for its own sake. I also can't stress the fact that this game has nearly everything going for it. Like I said before, this isn't your run-of-the-mill RPG. This is the beauty that is Octopath Traveler.